Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me today on Krista So Crafty. Today we are going to be working on another of the blocks for the block of the week. This one is called the Churn Dash block. It's a fun little block. There's lots of little pieces, but you can do it. So to begin with, you're going to need 3 different colors. So I've chosen this blue, and this is a 7-inch square. And I've also cut a 2.5-inch by 18-inch strip of fabric. My second material is going to be this yellow with this little print on it. Again, 7 inches square, as well as 2.5 by 18-inch. So that's going to be for all the way around the outside. And then you'll also need a piece that is 4.5 inches square. And so I've just chosen this because it kind of goes along with that, and that's just what I'm going to go with. Again, I'm going to be using scraps, just going through stuff, making blocks. That's all I'm doing. Let's get going. Our first step that we're going to do is we're going to take these strips and this 4.5-inch block, and we're just going to set them aside. You want your 2 7-inch pieces, and what we're going to do is we're going to put them right sides together, one on top of each other, just like this. Line them all up. And if you want to put a couple pins in there, absolutely, just to kind of hold them in place. And we're going to take this to our sewing machine, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch all the way around the outside. All right, I'm going to use some black thread just because the colors on mine are predominantly dark. And I am using a 1/4 inch seam, like I said, with a 2.4-inch length. So I'm going to start on the side here, and I'm just going to do a little back stitch, and we're going to stitch all the way around. When you get to the corner, you're going to keep your needle down and pivot and keep going. When you get to the end, or we're at the beginning, do a little back stitch. Now we'll bring this over to our cutting table, and we are going to cut this into 4. All right, actually, I'm going to take this over and I'm just going to press it so that these seams will relax and everything will lay down nice. I'll be right back. Now I'm going to cut in both directions, corner to corner. So I'm going to lay my ruler down here, like that. A little bit more. All right, so we're going to cut here. Do not move your fabric. Pick up your ruler and turn it this way and cut the other direction. So what this is doing is this is going to give us 4 half square triangles that we can use in our block, like this. See? So with our half square triangles, we want to press them open, and I'm going to press all these so that the seam is going towards the dark side. So first of all, I'm just going to give these a little press. Make sure that everything is laying down nice. And now I'm going to leave the light side down and just push your fabric towards the dark side, like this, and then give them a press. And this will help them to lay down nice, and so that when we go to put our block together, it'll be very nice. We're going to repeat this with all 4 blocks. Let's go back to the desk. Now we need to bring these in, and we need to cut off all these little dog ears. So just take your scissors and trim them off. What this does is it helps to reduce the amount of bulk that is in your seams so that your quilt block will lay down nice. So I'll do that with all 4 of these. All right, get those out of the way. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to take these over to my ironing board, and I'm going to give them a press because they still have the fold line in them. So I'm going to take these over, give them a good press, and then we're going to take it to our sewing machine. But we're going to put these right sides together. We're going to put some pins in here, and we're going to stitch 1/4 inch seam all the way down one side. Okay, so I will meet you back here when I'm ready to sew. All right, I got all my pins in. I'm just going to line this all up I've got a 1/4 inch. So we can just start sewing. You want to use a fairly small stitch on this because we are going to cut it apart. So I'm going to actually change my stitch length to probably about a 2.0 because we want the stitches fairly close together so that when we cut it, the stitches don't all just come apart. I'm just going to press this first to relax those seams. And then I'm going to open this up and fold it so that the dark is going up, which is covering our seam. Very nice. I like yellow and blue together. I think they're complementary colors. Oops, I just have to fix this end. There we go. All right. So your strip set should be 18 inches long because that's what we cut it. So I'm going to line up the bottom on my mat here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little ruler and I'm going to cut it on the 9-inch line because that's half of 18. Let's give that a cut. And again, don't move your fabric. So now half of 9 is 4.5. So we're going to cut that. Lay my ruler on the 4.5-inch line like that. Then we'll lay our ruler on the 13.5-inch line. Let's just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. And cut that. Move this over a little bit more. Like that. So now we have 4 strip sets together, and we're going to use these along with the half square triangles and our 4.5-inch square to make our Churn Dash block. Let's go do that. All right, so let's bring in all our pieces. So here's our strip sets, here's our half square triangles, and here's our center block, which is 4.5 inches square. So I'm going to start in the center here with my 4.5 inch. And these pieces here, the strip sets, all go around the outside on the middle. So I'm going to put the dark to the inside, the blue to the inside, like this. And then I'm going to take my half square triangles and I'm going to put the dark part of the triangle in, like this. Isn't that so pretty? Look at that. That's so pretty. I like that. So now we just need to start sewing it together, and we're going to sew it together in rows. So I'm going to sew the top row together, the bottom row together, and the middle row together. Just take it. I'm just going to scoot this up so you can see. Take your block and lay it on top like that. Nice part is that they're all going to line up and there's no seams to match. I am going to just put a couple pins on this side to hold it in place, like this. And then I'm going to open it up, and I'm also going to take and put this one on here as well. And I'm going to make sure I pin it, and then this ensures that you know which side to sew. So just flip that around so I can get these pins in here. Perfect. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam down both of these sides. All right. Now make sure you put your stitch length back up to the 2.4 and we can start sewing. To bring in my pin holder here. All right. So straight down the side. Remove those pins before you sew over them. Turn it around and sew down the other side. Make sure everything is all lined up. And there we go. Our first row is sewn together. So I'll just repeat that with the other rows, all the same. Here's our block. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to fold the outside parts into the middle, put some pins in, and sew them down. All right, let's go sew these together. Oh, my needle came unthreaded. Who else has a needle threader and loves it? I really, really do. Okay, and I'll bring in the other one and sew it right away too. And our last one, our last of these seams, and then we got to sew the long seams together. But we will take it to the ironing board and give it a press first. Okay, make sure, so this one here has the seam. Make sure that the seam is laying down nicely so you don't get a big bulge in there. Same as with this one, make sure it's lays down nicely. All right, let's get this laid out. Make sure that you have these going the right way so we still have our shape of our Churn Dash block. Now we're going to take these over to the ironing board and we're going to press the seams in opposite directions. So the top and the bottom, we're going to press out, and the middle one, we're going to press to the inside. Okay, so let's go to the ironing board. So here's our blocks. So I like to give them a finger press. I kind of pull on this a little bit so that all the fabric is out from underneath of that seam. And then I'll turn around and I'll do it this way. Like that. Oops. And then flip it over and give it a nice press. Doesn't that look so nice? All right, that's one done. So let's do this one. And make sure those other seams stay laying down the way they were. We want our block to lay down nice and flat. All right. Now this block, which is our center line, we want to press the seams to the inside. So we'll give that a little press. Pull on it a little bit just to make sure that all the material is out from under that seam. And then we can turn it and do the same thing. Very nice, very nice. Give it a press from the front. And we are ready to go to our sewing machine and put them together. All right, we're back here and we need to pin this together. So I'm going to take the center one and I'm going to flop it over. Now this time we do have some seams that we need to match up, and that's these center ones. So all I'm going to do is put them together and use my fingers to kind of push the material over and line them up, and you will feel when those seams are locked together. And the reason that happens is because we pressed the blocks, the seams, in opposite directions. And so then when we go to put them together, they just fit together beautifully. The first time I ever made this block was, probably, 6 years ago, maybe? Something like that. 5, 6 years ago, maybe 7. I was on with my sisters and we were doing what we called a sister quilt. and she wanted this block and showed us how to make it. And I really fell in love with it. I thought it was great. So thank you to Lynn for showing me this block so many years ago. So now that we have this all pinned together, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and we can just stitch it together. Again, 1/4 inch along that whole side. Let's bring this in and get it stitched together. And as I don't know if you can tell or not, I have my walking foot on. You definitely do not need your walking foot on. I don't know, I like to use it. It just pulls the material through nicely, top and bottom. And I've kind of gotten used to using it all the time. So that's what I do. So I'm just going along, making sure that all of those seams are laid down the way that they were pressed in the first place. And just like that, we have the one sewn together. So beautiful. And now we just need to bring in our other piece and pin it together as well. Join up these seams like that. Make sure when you're putting your pin in, what I do is I go right along that seam, and then that way it holds that nicely. So get that in there like that. And like I said, you can feel when those seams are butted up together. And like that. And let's get these sewn together here. Be sure to take your pins out. Don't want to sew over them. There we go. I could feel that that seam was not laying down properly. All right, it's all done. Let's go give it a good press. Turned out so nice. So again, I'm going to set those seams. Just apply some heat to it to make the stitches lay down nice. And I'll do the same thing to the other side. And now it doesn't really matter which way we press these, but as you can see, when we open this up, they're kind of wanting to go to the outside. So that's where we're going to press them. I'll get that down there. And that side. So we'll do them both at the same time. Give them a good press. There's a lot of bulk in these joins right there. Let's lay these down. Okay, make sure it's nice and flat. And now let's take it to the cutting board. All right. Let's see. Look at that. 12.5 inches. Perfect. Wonderful. So now that is block 5 of our block of the week. You know, this Churn Dash block, it looks complicated, but as you can tell, once you start putting it together, it just goes together beautifully. 3 different blocks, half square triangles, strip sets, and a 4.5 inch center. Again, you could do these in any colors. You could do them in all solids, all patterns. You could mix and match. It would make a beautiful quilt. This would also make a very nice table runner. You could make something like this and build it out a bit more for a table centerpiece. Lots of different ways that you could use this Churn Dash block. I want to thank you for joining me today as we made the Churn Dash block. I really like how this turned out. It's such a fun block and it just pops. Especially like with me, I use the dark and then the light so that it just pops on the material. I really hope you enjoyed this and I would love to see what you create. Go on over to Krista So Crafty on Facebook and share what you're making. I would love to see your blocks. And because, you know, like I said before, we're all doing the same blocks, but they're going to look so different because we're all doing our own different colors. And I think that's going to be fantastic. Thank you again for joining me, and join me again next Wednesday when we bring block 6 of the block of the week. Thank you and happy crafting.